Welcome.
Thank you. Good
It's
to be
great
here.
to have you here at the Phocuswright conference talking about business travels, sterling topic.
This is where everybody gets bored. The B2B stuff.
Never. Unusual business is what we call this session. So, we're going to have some fun with it, right? So, unusual business. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about how business travel is changing. It's never going to go back to the way it was. What do you think, John? Let's start with you. What do you think are the biggest changes that you've seen having been in the business travel industry for a while?
I mean, it's probably easier to talk about what hasn't changed, to be honest with you, at this point. Traveler expectations have changed. The supply landscape has changed. The needs of the different constituents in the process have all changed. It's all different. I mean, everybody expects things to be like it was in 2019. You go to an airport, you expect to get through security quickly, get your bags, go where you have to go. There's disruptions, there's lines, the prices are high, capacity's low. It's quite different than it was before. Yeah, it's actually easier to talk about what hasn't changed.
Belinda, you agree?
Yeah, no, I would confirm all of that. I think what has surprised me the most is the speed of change. If you think back, it's just even to think back this time last year and where we were traveling and, it was very domestically focused. And suddenly, the world opens up and everything changes at such pace. And I think I was reminded of that very recently. We had some clients come out from Beijing. They flew into our London office and they were sharing with us what an experience that was. And you can imagine being in Beijing, China, and then flying to London Heathrow a month ago. And for us, it's been a gradual process. We've had the social distancing, we've had the masks, we've had the testing on arrival, and all of those crazy forms that we were dealing with for a while there. They literally just walked into business as usual, and you can imagine what an impact that had on them. So I think that pace, and just even thinking about how much we've been through recently, we easily forget about arriving at an airport and having to scout around for a PCR test so you could get home again, and all of that crazy timing, 48 hours before, and the forms you had to fill out, and uploading your vaccination forms. We've already forgotten about that almost, right? And I think that's quite unusual.
We certainly have forgotten all about
We all got very good at swabbing our noses.
We did.
Is that your memory from the pandemic?
I think so. There was a point going a couple international trips back to back. My nose was sore from just ramming stuff up it, trying to test things out. So, yeah,
I don't know about the nose thing, but I definitely remember being in Tokyo and trying to spit enough stuff into the jar to actually be able to get a sample.
Yeah.
That wasn't exactly easy either.
Okay, that's one thing we definitely don't miss.
No.
But let's talk about sort of travel programs today as well, right? They're a bit messy in sort of in terms of the expectations that corporates have versus what a TMC can realistically provide, or even suppliers can provide, given all kinds of things that have changed, the labor shortages, things like that. So, can you talk about that a little bit, John?
Yeah. No. We work at relatively large TMCs, and we have relatively large customers. They're spending far less than they once were. One of the reasons I love this conference is because there's no buyers here from the travel corporate side, so we can have a bit more of a free conversation about how much they are pains in the butt sometimes. But their spends are way down, but their expectations are still way high as to the services they're looking for and the different programs that are there. You layer on top of that a whole bunch of challenges with travel policy and rules and risks, all the things we just talked about around how complicated travel is nowadays, and layering that into how those programs unfold. But it's really difficult. They have an expectation that they have a large spending power and they can negotiate big discounts, but they're just not materializing in today's world because capacity is so constrained and the world is a little so different. So it's been really challenging navigating that water with some of the large customers that are out there, which is why you see the SME side probably rebounding a bit faster than I think the enterprise side has.
And how do you see sort of the role of the TMC evolving, right? Because weren't we talking, about the TMC being dead for all intents and purposes just a couple of years ago? Yet over the years, I mean, we've heard that many, many times. And here we are again. I mean, you can't really do business travel, especially for the larger segments without the TMC. And not just that, I mean, Amex GBT in their results talked about how they're converting a lot of unmanaged accounts to managed. So clearly the TMC is kind of, had a rebirth.
Yeah. I'm happy to take that one. I would say there's never been a time where the value of a TMC has been higher if you think about the complexity of travel today. And all of that change that we just talked about earlier, someone has to help guide travelers to understand how they can get from point A to B. And often it's not A to B anymore. Trips are getting much more complex. There's a lot more need for safety and security. I think that a good partnership between a client and a TMC, there's a lot of value there. Both for the client in terms of what we can provide them, but also for the TMC where there's a partnership, where there's a lot of data sharing and some forecasting around what could return to travel look like. I think one of the challenges has been how do we get after that? How do we really predict? We've seen numbers go from the low 20s and 30s and then they skyrocketed over the summer months. Obviously that creates challenges in the service space and particularly with talent acquisition. It's been tough. So I think that the value is there. There's definitely pent-up demand. We were talking about pent-up demand earlier with Google. I would say it's very true in the business travel and meeting space as well. And we're certainly seeing that.
Yeah. I mean, I was on the focus group panel earlier today for the launch event, and it's great to see some of the innovations that are coming out of the industry and some of the new products that companies are going through. But from a corporate B2B perspective, I'm constantly thinking about what happens when the shit hits the fan. What happens when the flight gets canceled and it's the last flight back to your city and you've been on a business trip for 3 days. You don't want to talk to a chatbot. You want to talk to a person who can actually do something for you. So I completely echo. I mean, we have seen the value of the travel consultant. Some cases it's empathy they want to hear. They want somebody to care about their plight and what they're dealing with. Other cases, it's expertise to navigate through the complexities of travel today. Our most highly sought after roles right now are travel consultants. We can't find enough of them right now to fill the open positions that we have just to provide the services to our customers to the level that they're expecting. So yeah, if there was ever a renaissance of the travel consultant, we're definitely seeing it now.
And it's a process, right? It's not just that you can recruit and provide, I don't know, weeks training and off they go. I mean, especially when travelers are on the road, they want somebody to support them and solve their problems. And so I imagine it's a tough slog.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say this has been one of the biggest challenges we've seen this year in the industry as a whole. And sometimes I feel like we're a little short-sighted. We should be doing more together to really go out and promote the industry as an attractive place to have a career. There's a lot more we could do, I think, together. We've had so many skilled workers leave the industry and never return during the COVID pandemic. And we talked about it this morning with the hotel crew. This has really been the biggest challenge. And then that plus the forecasting that I talked about earlier, how do you get your numbers right? Right now, it's not even a concern. I think anyone that can hire a skilled agent would do it in a heartbeat. There's a lot of open roles, as John said, across the industry, across all segments of the industry. And it's something that we need to solve for in some way.
And so do you think, John, you said innovation when you were talking about this idea, but do you think there is kind of a happy medium where, we could find some innovative tech solutions? I mean, you've got obviously chatbot. You were the first, if I recall correctly, FCM Sam.
I think that's why Pete maybe comment on the guy who went earlier today first, yeah.
Oh, there you go. But there has to be, right? Because this is a problem we're seeing across the industry with not having skilled employees or the right skill sets and taking a long time to
I mean there's definitely been a lot of innovation. We are transacting above 2019 levels at about 60 to 70% the staff. So just by virtue of manpower, we are automating a lot more that's actually going on. And there's been a variety of different tools that are out there to help facilitate that side of it. I mean, for us, it's a blend. I mean, one of our value propositions that we talk about within our brands is the expertise and the ownership that our people have. So when we set off on a project to put a new product out to market, to build an enhancement, a lot of what we work on is trying to very specifically find where that integration works best to balance the human element and the robotic element, and to to have the ability to self-service and do stuff in an automated way, but always have the ability to have a person there to support you, because that's, in my experience, I travel frequently, that's just how it is. I mean, there's no magical solution that fixes everything and solves all NDC and books this and books that. Like, it's all a little bit piecemeal. And at some point something breaks and you need a person that can help out and help facilitate some of those components.
Yeah. Also on that topic of innovation, I want to talk about changing business models, because subscriptions, we talk about them a lot in the travel industry these days, and obviously CWT recently has you just did a beta and now you're kind of rolling it out a little more widely.
That's right. Yes, we did a pilot for 1 year with one of our bigger customers. I think you're talking about the business model as a whole. There has to be an evolution as well. I mean, clearly, you can imagine at the beginning of the year, we were receiving just as much phone calls with cancellations and people looking for advice and help. But we basically didn't get paid for any of those phone calls. When you're on a transaction-based model, it doesn't work, right? It can't be 100% transaction-based. And I think even just to build a more modernized, more transparent way of pricing and working with our customers has been something that was asked for even pre-pandemic. And if you think about it, what we've found from the pilot is that this particular customer and others that we're now working with on a similar subscription model, they love the transparency and they love the fact that it's very easy for them to forecast and budget because they know what they're going to be spending on a monthly basis. So I think it has a long runway, and it's something we're following with a lot of interest.
And John, you think that's something that we'll see more of?
I mean, we have not had the same success with alternate models. We've tried in a couple of situations with some customers in a few market segments. Hasn't had huge uptake. I mean, from our perspective, we're going to follow the trends that our customers are asking for. And if they start to move towards a model that's a little less transaction oriented, then we'll move in that direction as well. I mean, it's quite true. I actually was with a customer yesterday and explained, they were asking, well, why do all TMCs, why has there been so much turmoil in the industry? And I kind of explained to them, like, when people stop traveling, we kind of stop making money, in the entire economic factor of how the commercial aspects works of our industry. And we're constantly looking for ways to help improve that. And obviously, we learned a very big lesson in COVID around it being completely tied to fully transactional models. So there's been some movement away from that with some aspects that we put into, but have not seen a large move to subscription-based services. If it becomes a bigger thing, we'll adopt it, but haven't seen a huge uptick.
Okay, so maybe.
Maybe,
That
yeah.
sounds like a maybe.
We're open to it, yeah.
Okay, let me ask you about another topic that I think is pretty big in the industry right now, and that's sustainability. And how are you helping clients in your role as the TMC sitting in the middle, really, right? How are you helping your clients to kind of achieve their sustainability goals? And I can say this: I was at GBTA in August and attended a session, and there seems to be this lack of education, lack of knowledge about how to go about bringing sustainability to programs, right? And of course, there's always wide variation. The larger, more enterprise sort of companies, they have the ability to kind of put policies into place, etc. But for the large majority, I would say, I think they need some help, need some hand-holding. And so how are you doing that?
Yeah, I think it's a big topic. It's something we talk a lot about, and we've been focusing on at CWT for quite some time, actually. It's more than 10 years that we've been looking at sustainability data. But I think it is a challenge, right? Because as you mentioned, that the large enterprises, they're really thinking about how do they set goals, how do they get after their goals. And our role, the way we think about it, is it's our job to try and help them with that, both the education part and also measuring the goals and getting to the goals. I would say there's no easy way to do that. One of the things we've been very focused on is advanced analytics to help them be able to track it both to the goals and help set those goals. But also building in the capability to make informed decisions at point of sale. So back in March, we actually integrated carbon emissions data into our MyCWT platform to try and encourage customers that have these goals and just provide the visibility to carbon emissions when they're actually booking the trip. So, there's a lot of ways to get out of this. Some companies are thinking a lot more about offsetting, but we hope that having that information at point of sale will also help them make more informed decisions.
Some of that traveler behavior, the consumer pull that we're seeing, certainly on the leisure side, I think what you're saying is if you make it more visible in the booking tool, for example, that might drive some behavior changes.
I think there's a real will. We surveyed customers a few months ago, and 2/3 of the customers that we spoke to told us that sustainability goals was more important to them post-pandemic than it was pre-pandemic. But once again, it's a process, right? It's a journey, and we're doing our best to make sure that they have all the information and analytics that they need to be able to sort of drive progress within their corporations, and then once again, trying to influence it at the booking stage.
And you talked about partnering with companies that can provide that kind of data. Is there anything else sort of on the tech innovation side that you see that might kind of play a role?
I would give a big ditto, if that's possible, for everything that we were just talking about. We're doing much of the same to help support them. There's a couple of really strong technology providers that do offer some sustainability services. We partner heavily with Thrust Carbon. I know they're here today to do a lot of the data with them. One data point that I like to put out, which puts a little bit of a damper on the convo, but I'll say it anyways. We had our large customer event a few weeks ago in Dublin, and we played a game where we gave them essentially $1 billion of fake money, and we said, hey, here's 10 topics that a TMC covers, and can you allocate your $1 billion as to how you'd invest it? And sustainability was one of them, alongside technology and service and meetings and events and all these different aspects of managed travel programs. How much money do you think they put on sustainability?
All of it, right?
I'm going to ask the audience. Anybody? How much money? Vuk says 0.
He'd be correct, yeah. So it's one of these things where I think we're investing, we're putting some effort behind it. I'm not going to go overboard with it because, I need to see a bit more of a customer desire around really not just greenwashing and saying they're doing something, but actually making real changes to their programs to adopt it. But when put to the test, it doesn't rank out as high as some other areas. Could be very point in time, could be that customer set that we talk to, but those are data points that we go through and think about as we're looking at our investments.
And I think you make a great point there, because much as we talk about sustainability in the industry, there is a lot of greenwashing. I think we have to face that.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. No, that's good to hear. That's great perspective. Let me ask you also about fintech, because that's another topic that comes up a lot. What are your thoughts? TripActions obviously has kind of Liquid and BCD Pay and all of those kind of solutions that the TMCs are bringing to market.
I think you need more about Hopper. You see all the Hopper ads out there? Hopper is payment solutions. I think that needs to be more of a focus.
That's sort of on the risk side more so, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to allow people to change hotels and cover flights, etc.
Yes, so we operate two different businesses. We have our large market business, which is FCM, and then our small market business, our SMB business, which is corporate traveler. And we see the needs quite different between the two segments. On the large market side, it's a lot more of supporting what the customers already have. You don't go to, Fortune 100 companies and give them your expense tool. Like, most of them come in with some type of product that they have based off of some ERP integration they've got behind the scenes, or some other strategic investment in some platform that they have. So I think we probably both agree it's a lot more supportability on that side and easing some of the services that are there, and we're seeing some traction in that space. On the SMB side, it's quite different, and you don't have customers there that have as much affinity towards specific solutions, and they are looking for simplicity. So we do see a lot more opportunity on that side of it, and lots of things that we're working on in that space. And yeah, it's certainly, depending on the market segment you're looking at, there's certainly some movement happening.
Okay. I'm going to turn a little bit to, the macroeconomic conditions, right? We're hearing this talk of recession, of economic headwinds, obviously inflation, the rising cost of travel. How are you kind of planning for it? Are you foreseeing that, just as we're starting to see business travel recover, we might kind of see a pullback? Any kind of early indications from your clients, from the data you're seeing?
Yeah, I think it's ongoing conversations, making sure that we understand what our clients are expecting. We've learned a lot during the pandemic, right? We've got a lot better at predicting, looking at sort of warning signs of what could be softness in the business. I think if nothing else, we've built a resilience and new muscle that we would rely on should we see a downturn. We're hoping that there won't be, obviously, after having such a great return this year and really seeing this huge growth in demand. But who knows, right? Crystal ball question.
Yeah. I mean, last week you've seen Meta do large layoffs. You've seen Twitter going through a whole shitstorm there. A lot of layoffs there that are happening. Disney just announced that they're doing some constriction of costs and layoffs. You're starting to see the signs for some of the macro indicators for recession, but if we learned anything during COVID, it was adaptability.
Yeah.
So making sure we can react is probably the best recipe to be able to handle it.
So we're ready. I think you said to me when we talked that you threw out your crystal ball.
Gone. Crystal ball's gone. Tea leaves are gone.
All right, one last question for both of you. So the biggest lesson that you've learned from the pandemic and you'd like our audience to take away today? Belinda.
Okay, so I would say agility and look after your people.
To look after your people. That actually.
I'll go a different angle. We're not doing brain surgery. Nobody dies if they don't make their flight. So it could be worse.
So sorry.
Could be worse.
Could be worse. So you're kind of keeping that outlook.
Yeah, I mean you gotta adapt. You gotta be able to do stuff, but don't take it too seriously. I mean it's important stuff, but there are bigger problems in the world than we're dealing with sometimes.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Belinda, John, our panel here. Thank you.
I don't think she's feeling it right now.
I will be on my phone all week. Looks like somebody needs a little Hertz TLC.
Liv, you're on vacation, but I don't think you're feeling it.
Huh?
Please, your phone. It's okay.
Hand it over.
Yeah, you're good. Go enjoy yourself. Sam.
You feeling it now? Let's go.
Everyone needs a break sometimes.
She's feeling it.
Let's go.